It was one of those lazy Saturday evenings that made you forget the world was spinning. The breeze outside was light, just enough to make the blinds sway gently against the window pane. My name is Emily Carter. I was 29, single, and living in a modest 2-bedroom apartment on the outskirts of Seattle. I wasn't rich, but I had peace. Or at least, I thought I did. I had been journaling in my room with a cup of green tea, headphones on, listening to acoustic covers of old songs that made my heart ache in that quiet, unexplainable way. The light of my desk lamp cast a golden glow across the scattered papers on my bed. I wore an oversized hoodie and shorts, lounging in the kind of comfort you only allow yourself when you believe no one else is watching. Ryan Matthews had been staying with me for a couple of weeks. He was 34, my best friend Haley's older brother, and temporarily between places after selling his condo. We hadn't seen much of each other in years until he asked if he could crash with me while he closed on a house he was buying a few towns over. I had said yes without hesitation. I remembered him as the calm one growing up, always offering rides or snacks when we hung out at Haley's place in high school. He was kind, considerate, solid. He had left early that morning for a quick weekend trip to his parents' place in Tacoma. He wasn't supposed to be back until Sunday night, which meant I had the whole apartment to myself. I welcomed the solitude. Sometimes being around another person, even someone like Ryan, felt like too much after a long week. I'd had an exhausting one at work, filled with client meetings, a computer crash, and a bad review from a manager who clearly didn't know how hard I was trying. As I sat in my room, emotionally spent and mentally drained, I tried to find some escape in writing. But nothing came out right. My thoughts were foggy, my pen heavy. I threw the notebook to the side and just lay back, letting my mind drift. I didn't hear the key turn in the lock. I didn't hear the soft creak of the front door opening. Emily, a familiar voice called from the hallway. I bolted upright. Ryan. I scrambled off the bed and pulled my hoodie down, heart racing. My door was half open, stupid, careless mistake. He was supposed to be gone. I thought you were coming back tomorrow, I said, stepping into the hall. He looked slightly surprised to see me. Change of plans. Mom had a migraine, and they basically kicked me out early. Is she okay? I asked, brushing my hair behind my ear. Yeah, just resting. I didn't mean to startle you. I smiled faintly. No, it's fine. I just wasn't expecting anyone. He tossed his overnight bag onto the couch and kicked off his boots. He looked exhausted, eyes sunken a little more than usual, a few extra lines around the corners of his mouth. But there was still something unshakably calm about him. You good? He asked, glancing toward my room. I nodded. Yeah, just journaling. You hungry? I have leftover pasta. He smiled. You always have leftover pasta. I laughed. It's my comfort food. He followed me into the kitchen, where I reheated the food and we talked quietly, as we often did. Ryan wasn't the kind of guy who pushed for details or filled silence with noise. He just existed with you in the moment. It was nice. After dinner, we moved to the living room. He sprawled out on the couch while I curled up on the armchair. I might be falling asleep right here, he said, eyes already half closed. Rough drive. Not really. Just been a long month. He didn't elaborate, and I didn't ask. Some silences were sacred. After a while, I said goodnight and went back to my room. I locked the door this time, not because I was afraid, but because I didn't want to be caught off guard again. I changed into my tank top and cotton shorts, brushed my hair, and crawled into bed. I opened my notebook again and tried to write anything, to capture the feeling that had crept into me since Ryan returned. Something had shifted. It wasn't romantic, not exactly. But it was deeply human. I don't know how long I'd been writing before I heard the knock. Soft, tentative. I froze. Emily? Ryan's voice came through the door. Yeah. You left your phone charger in the living room. I brought it. I stood, walking to the door and opening it just enough to peek through. Oh, I said, smiling. Thanks. I totally forgot. He handed it to me, then hesitated. You okay? Yeah. Why? You just seem off. I swallowed. Just a long day. He nodded but didn't move. Mind if I sit for a minute? I stepped back. Sure. He came in and sat at the edge of my bed, glancing around the room like he was seeing it for the first time. My sketches were taped above my desk, my bookshelf overflowing, a candle flickering on the nightstand. I used to draw, he said suddenly. I looked at him. You did? He nodded. Before I joined the department. Firefighting took over everything. Haven't picked up a pencil in years. You should try again, I said. Even if it's bad. He chuckled. Maybe. There was a long pause. I could feel something between us, not romantic tension, but a strange emotional vulnerability that made everything feel more vivid. I never thanked you, he said quietly. For what? For letting me stay here. I didn't realize how badly I needed to reset. I smiled. You're welcome. I like having you here. He looked at me then, really looked. His eyes met mine in a way that made me feel exposed, not physically, but emotionally. It was the kind of gaze that saw beneath the surface. Emily, he said softly, can I ask you something? Sure. Why do you always act like you're fine when you're clearly carrying everything alone? I blinked, startled. What? He didn't look away. You do. I've seen it every day since I moved in. You smile, you nod, you make jokes. But your eyes are tired. I didn't answer right away. It was the kind of question that pulled things out of you whether you were ready or not. Because I have to, I said eventually. If I don't hold it together, no one else will. He nodded slowly. I get that. We sat there for a long time. No words. Just a quiet understanding that sometimes, the hardest thing isn't breaking down, it's allowing someone else to witness the pieces. Eventually, he stood up. I should let you sleep. I nodded. Good night, Ryan. Good night, Emily. The next morning, something between us had changed. Not in a dramatic, world-shifting way, but in a quiet, unspoken bond that made our conversations feel deeper, our silences more comforting. Over the next few weeks, we continued living together. We made breakfast side by side, took late-night walks, shared silly stories and serious moments. I learned about his failed engagement, and he learned about my anxiety and my fear of being truly seen. One evening, after a long walk, we sat on the porch, watching the sky turn shades of lavender and coral. The air smelled like summer and memory. I think I'm going to miss this when I leave, he said softly. I turned to him. You don't have to leave. He looked at me with something unreadable in his expression. You sure about that? I am. We didn't rush into anything. We didn't define it. But something real had taken root, something honest and rare. Two people, scarred but healing, finding space in each other's lives. It all started because he walked in at the worst time. But what happened next truly changed everything.